That's how you got to look at your money. And so if you spend it on something that doesn't make money, you're just decreasing that chance for that money to multiply and grow. So these are concepts in sacrificial times that you have to be thinking long term, sacrificing your money. Look, always keeping your mind open for opportunities. Riding down the street, you see a car on the side of the road. A guy might want $100. Then you could take it across the scale, get $300. You have to always make your money work for you. Your money has to be your slave, as they talk about in Richest Man Babylon. And it's a good slave, and it never talks back. It only does what you tell it to do. So you have to give your money good direction so you can grow it. And I also would say this, watch where you put your money, because I got all my money in the market accounts, and they in conservative accounts, making 3, 6, sometimes even 9%. That's on the conservative, and it's making money every month. And versus just a regular, and the Bible talks about that. You know, when Jesus gave the man out 5 and 2 and 1 talent, he said, "Why you didn't put my money in the bank? At least get some interest." So you at least need to be making interest on your money to try to offset inflation. You have to be understanding your money has to make money for you, and that's
your money has to be living. It has to be. You cannot let your money sit. If your money is sitting still, it's going backwards. It's as simple as that. If it's sitting still, it's going backwards. Now, just real quick, I want to touch on something before we get ready to get off here. You said, hey, I got my money parked in places to where I'm getting conservative gains, but they're pretty much guaranteed gains. You know, like you said, 3%, 4%, 5%. Not a lot, but it's stable and it's consistent. But then you have people that invest hard in the stock market.
Yeah.
The reason why I don't personally, and I want to get your thoughts on this, the reason why I don't personally invest in the stock market, because to me, government has too much influence. Case in point, like our current administration, it's like that with all of them. By the stroke of a pen or just by the mere words you speak, you can control the markets and sway them back and forth. You know, for instance, in our latest climate, I think the stock market probably lost 4,000, probably close to 4,000, 5,000 points in the last 5 days, where people were losing half their 401k. But then you have a day like today, where it's the highest one-day pickup in like 5 years, and now all that money you lost, most of it was gain. But the reason we lost it was because the person in charge said, hey, this is my new policy. And that policy wasn't a policy friendly to the business community or the market. Well, he comes out today and says, hey, I'm going to put a 3-month pause on what I said I was going to do. And the market reacted positively. And now all the stocks went up. So I find the stock market to be real volatile and unstable for a person like me who don't like to take a lot of risk where I can't control the money. I don't mind parking it somewhere. I don't mind investing it, but if I do, I want to have a sense of control. And when you, to me, and this is not to tell someone to not invest in the stock market, because I think it's still good and smart. You just got to really be watching and studying the stock market when you put money in the stock market, because world events can change that. Interest rates can change that, you know, so you have to be careful on that type of stuff. So what's your thought on that?
Well, this, once again, we're dealing with mindset, right? It's and your comfortable level of your investment strategy. I mean, you got an aggressive type style where you just put it directly in the market. Then you got people like me who depend more on the S&P 500, because the S&P 500 is a strategy where you never lose income. You know what I'm saying? It's an index fund. It's an index. And so index is a strategy that how you approach money, where if you lose 20%, you may not make any money, but it stops at zero. It's a floor. It's not it don't go under zero. You know what I'm saying? And so that's called, when I used to sell life insurance, I used to tell people about this policy called the IUL. I think I used to tell you about it. It's called the Index Universal Life, where you get about 9 to 11%. But if the stock market go under zero, you never lose money. So it's all about your strategy. So I'm a more conservative. I don't like you said, I don't like to put my money in a volatile situation. I feel like I'm a hustler, and I depend on my drive and my ambition. But I also understand that if you can put your money in the S&P 500 and you never lose. So if you got $100 in there, and you might not get a 10% where you grow to 110, but if it go down to zero, you still just at 100. Your money didn't lose. And so that's all about your strategy. You know what I'm saying? And so, but I will say this, just like the market, you was talking about the market. If you have $1,000 and you lose 50% in the market, that means you got 500. But if you gain 50%, 50% of 500 is 250. So you don't get that. You're not back at 1,000. Now you're really just back at 750. And I know, and that's why people got to make sure they understand that losing 50% and gaining 50% is totally different. You know what I'm saying? Because you're going to gain 50% of where you at after the loss. And so make sure people have to really understand how money works and make sure they're good with numbers. And I know you and I always used to compete all the time. Who can come up with a multiplication factor number? We always compete with numbers. So we understand numbers, and people who are good with numbers can multiply quickly. So I make sure we understand that if you have 1,000 and you lose 50%, you have 500. But if the market gains 50%, 50% of 500 is 250. 250 plus 500. Now you're back at 750 instead of 1,000. So you still down 25% of where you initially started. So that's the key too. So if you put your money in a conservative way, it's guaranteed not to lose money. But when the market is hitting 3 to 5, 10, 8%, 6%, your money is steady climbing. I've seen it was a program where they was talking about both of them started out with 20,000 over 20 years. When they was some were losing, some were gaining, but that conservative one ended up being 300,000 over 20 years. But that one that was losing ended up being like 177,000 because he kept taking losses and they would win. But it ended up being
well. We learned about that concept when we were kids, right? The tortoise versus the hare.
That's
right?
it.
The hare past the tortoise. The tortoise just keep going. The hare gets tired. Tortoise keep going. And every time we look up, that tortoise is right there because it's slow and steady. So
I could have used a better example. That was a good example, cuz.
Yeah, we learned that a long time ago, man.